Hello and welcome everybody to the Facts First PH research briefing. This is the third time we are doing this, and this happens every Friday, 10 a.m. And we are live in all of the Rappler channels on the social media. And we also have some of our partners in Facts First PH who are streaming this live on their pages. So for those of you who are joining us on the Rappler social media pages and our partner pages, hello and welcome to this third Facts First PH research briefing. Today, we have an all-female panel. It's Women's Month, and we have an all-female panel they will talk about their current research. So before we get to that, just a quick introduction. For those of you that don't know, Facts First PH started early this year, and this is a coming together of 100+ media and civil society groups, all of them coming together to take a stand to protect the facts and move towards a healthier and safer public space online. And part of the Facts First PH initiative is something that we call the research layer. The research layer is here to help us understand what's going on in the online information landscape. It helps us understand and gain insight on the narratives and networks that are used to manipulate the public ahead of the election. So this is a very important part of the Facts First PH because we need to understand really what's going on in our online landscape. So today's research briefing, we will be talking about the research called The Emergence of Political Polling Through Kalye Surveys. And we have the authors of that study here with us. So joining me on screen, we have Professor Maria Rosel San Pascual, Angelica U. Durana, and Mirnel Cinco. So just an introduction on our panelists for today. Professor San Pascual is an associate professor at the Department of Communication Research of the University of the Philippines, Diliman College of Mass Communication. She is also a member of the Philippine Media Monitoring Laboratory, and she primarily teaches quantitative research methods, measurement and sampling, and quantitative data analysis in both undergraduate and graduate levels. She is also actively engaged in academic research on communication and new media, online discourse, media effects, mass media, ICT and development, political communication, and transnational migration and family communication. So joining her as well is Angelica U. Durana. She's an MA in communication student at the Department of Communication Research. She previously received her Bachelor of Science major in psychology. She got that from Ateneo de Manila University, and she's been a licensed psychometrician since 2017. Also with us today is Mirnel A. Cinco. She is currently aiding the Department of Communication Research of UPDCMC in a number of research projects. She has a background in data analytics, data science, and research. And she has a bachelor's degree in communication research from the University of the Philippines, Diliman. So welcome to our third research briefing for the Facts First PH. So go ahead with your presentation.
Thank you, Happy. Magandang umaga sa ating lahat. Let me just share my screen. There you go. I hope you're seeing my screen clearly. Again, I am Chen San Pascual, lead author of The Emergence of Political Polling Through Kalye Surveys. With me are my co-authors, Aika Durana and Mirnel Cinco, and they will be joining me in the open forum session. Okay, so what is Kalye Survey? Kalye surveys are primarily person-on-the-street interviews that basically ask respondents their presidential vote choice question. The interviews are video documented, uploaded, some are even live streamed on YouTube. Some Kalye survey videos feature the tallying of gathered responses. Some are commentaries or explainers about Kalye surveys. So our Philippine Media Monitoring Laboratory team started scanning YouTube using election-related keywords in May 2021, last year, a year prior to the 2022 elections. And we noticed that Kalye surveys started surfacing as a popular YouTube election-related material among content creators around September 2021. And as of January this year, over 350 election-related calye survey videos have already been uploaded on YouTube. So using a tool directly linked to the YouTube API, we were able to extract quarterly data in first August 2021, which covers quarter one of our study, then in November 2022, which covers quarter two of our study, and then most recently, February 2022, which covers our studies quarter three. No? So through quarterly intensity sampling, we identified the calye survey content of the 10 YouTube channels with the most watched calye survey videos when election-related calye surveys began surfacing as YouTube content in quarter two up to the end of quarter three. Now, while our review automatically included these 10 channels calye survey content that made it to the top 10 quarterly viewership metric, we actually expanded our calye survey videos, our review of survey videos that these channels posted beyond the videos that made it to the top viewership metric. No? So we used maximum variation sampling in selecting other videos from the corpus of calye survey videos that these channels uploaded to enable us to review variations in calye survey content from these channels. So we reviewed a total of 43 calye survey videos for this cycle of presentation. Now, moving forward, when we talk about surveys and when we talk about surveys that would deliver valid and reliable results, we actually talk about the gold standards of survey practice to be able to generate valid and reliable findings. So survey, as we all know, no, we're very familiar with survey. In fact, it is a popular social science research method for making sense of people's circumstances, knowledge, beliefs, attitudes, habits, behavior. And all of us must have been a survey respondent at least once. No? And while it may appear as an intuitive and straightforward process of asking questions and acquiring answers, a scientific and ethically grounded approach is key for surveys to validly and reliably contribute to sense making. So essentially, the gold standard in surveys adheres to the principles of scientific and ethical practice across the entire phase of research, no? From conceptualization, research design, survey administration, data collection, data processing, storage, data analysis, data interpretation, write-up, and up to all forms of research dissemination. Now, when a survey fails to follow the gold standard of practice, survey results could lead to misinformation. And misinformation is misleading information. And decisions derived from misinformation could actually have negative consequences. And given that political poll results have been used in strategic campaigning, as reference for voting decisions, and as basis for comparing official election results, political polling groups must ensure that their design, administration, analysis, and dissemination strictly follow scientific and ethical standards in order, again, to validly and reliably contribute to sense making. Now, calye surveys. And how are calye surveys different from mainstream political polls? No? Calye surveys are generally packaged as an alternative to the mainstream political polls conducted by established public opinion research organizations such as Pulse Asia, SWS, and academic institutions. Calye surveys reflect a constructivist approach. Hold on. Okay. Calye surveys reflect a constructivist approach, meaning they chronicle the survey enumerators' administration of the survey. So from providing an opening spiel, approaching prospective respondents, asking the main question, and at times even follow-up questions, interacting with the respondents through arbitrary reactions and side comments, recording of vote choice, tallying, and then they also deliver wrap-up statements. So this is unlike mainstream political polling, wherein the process of data collection is neither video documented nor publicly disseminated. Also, unlike the survey enumerators of mainstream political polling groups who work behind the scenes, YouTube Kalye survey content creators also typically perform the role of on-camera enumerator, result aggregator, and all-around content host. No? So Kalye surveys attempt to claim authenticity as individuals were filmed while responding to the basic presidential vote choice question. Again, a contrast to the public anonymity maintained for participants of mainstream public opinion surveys. Kalye surveys also claim to instantly inform viewers about the respondents' presidential vote choice as their preference is articulated, again, unlike in public opinion surveys, which reveal results only after full data collection and in aggregated form. Kalye surveys likewise endeavor to be entertaining, no? Because they want to entice viewers to watch the video. And this is evident in the framing of the video title, as well as the casual and conversational conduct of the survey. Again, this is in contrast to the rather formal and sedate manner of disseminating technical results, characteristic of public opinion studies. And there are also Kalye surveys that do not disguise their hyper-partisanship, which is different from how mainstream political groups would endeavor to maintain objectivity across the entire phase of the research. Hence the question, since Kalye surveys are packaged differently from mainstream political polling, and some content creators would even say, katuwaan lang, now should Kalye surveys still be expected to follow the same gold standard of scientific and ethical practice? Our team believes so, especially if the intended outputs of the survey is to serve the purpose of public information and vote choice guidance. But our team also optimistically believes that the gold standard can be learned and incorporated in any survey practice to validly and reliably contribute to sense making. So if we actually have students here who are doing their class projects or thesis, you can actually pick up some nuggets from our presentation. Okay, now, why are we appealing for scientific rigor? Where is it coming from? So the demand for scientific rigor is actually anchored on surveys, positivist roots. And we will now present incidents where Kalye surveys tend to deviate from the gold standard of scientific rigor, which can again potentially lead to misinformation. And we will offer 4 basic prescriptions that address these deviations. Let's go to prescription 1. View reality objectively to avoid bias. This is a cardinal rule. As inherent in its positivist roots, surveys are ontologically predisposed to view reality objectively. No? And in order for us to do so, surveys utilize a standardized questionnaire. And what do we mean when we say standardized questionnaire? It contains a standard set of thoroughly designed questions. And if applicable, a standard set of meticulously crafted response options. And this standardized questionnaire is then standardly, repeatedly administered to an adequately sized and randomly drawn set of respondents, representing a larger population. So this process of standardization safeguards the survey from subjective biases that may arise in questionnaire construction, in survey administration, in respondent selection. And unbiased questionnaire construction and administration and unbiased respondent selection allow for impartial data collection and documentation. Now, our review of Kalye survey videos revealed the survey enumerator's tendency to conduct the survey in an unstandardized manner across all respondents, such as unsystematic respondent selection, inconsistent phrasing of questions and response options, arbitrary asking follow-up questions. And these incidents tend to introduce bias, which compromises the objectivity of the survey. Some examples. Okay, for instance, in terms of inconsistently phrasing the main question, So we notice one enumerator asking, survey lang sir, sino presidente nyo ngayong darating na halalan? And that same enumerator and that same survey would shift to another variation when asking another respondent. For example, sino sa anim ang napupusuan yung iboto ngayong darating na halalan? And would shift to another variation. No? So again, this is inconsistent, which runs against the prescription of standardization. We also observed an enumerator phrase the follow-up question, his follow-up question using these variations. Dito sir, wala ka bang tiwala sa iba? And then another follow-up, naniniwala ba kayo na si candidate X ang ina or ama ng bayan? And then would shift to, kay candidate X, ina ng bayan, ayaw niyo po. So again, these are variations in asking follow-up questions that's supposed to be standardized if follow-up questions are to be asked. There are also occasions when a survey enumerator would actually affirm the expressed vote choice of the respondent. For example, a respondent said about the vote choice, no? Sasabihin ni respondent, hindi siya magugurako. To which a respondent, an enumerator replied, talagang mababago ang Pilipinas. No? It is also common for some enumerators to offer additional comments. For example, kay candidate X ma'am, magbibigay daw ng bahay, which is off script, no? Which is not part of your standardized questionnaire that is supposed to be your script. Then a respondent, we also noticed when a respondent commented, hindi ko bet ang babae. The enumerator replied, so gusto mo dapat yung matapang. So may interpretation na siya na yung babae ay kinonect niya sa hindi preference dahil gusto na matapang. No? So part yun ng additional comments again of the script. Some would also feed possible answers to the respondents. In one instance, as the respondent was forming her answer to the follow-up question, which asked why she did not choose a particular candidate, the film crew, the camera person actually was the one who supplied the answer. Sabi niya, mag-aral daw kasi muna kasi, which was then echoed by the respondent, mag-aral muna. So, apart from this, we also noted instances of hyperpartisanship. We caught survey enumerators who hyped up the answer of respondents when it favored a particular candidate. For example, one enumerator, in an attempt to prod the respondents to repeat their vote choice in a louder, more emphatic manner, would repeat the question, sino ulit iboboto mo? And in another instance, an enumerator would even allow a group of respondents to chant and to cheer for the favored candidate's name. And then we even caught a survey enumerator arguing against the vote choice of a respondent. And this video was even edited to also incorporate video clips of the favored candidate supporters that appear to echo and to support and to cheer the enumerator's arguments. No? And in another occasion naman, the enumerator disclosed his presidential bet when the respondent asked him about it. So sinabi niya, candidate X po ako. So all these, again, are dangerous because we want our surveys to capture our data objectively. No? And survey literacy training can actually help explain the importance of objectivity. Since content creators function as enumerators, literacy training can help them realize how they can affect respondents' answers, which consequently introduces bias. And literacy training can guide them on how such can be avoided when surveys are professionally administered. Literacy training can also sharpen the skills necessary for designing and implementing objective surveys, introduce samples of codified protocols that outline how to professionally conduct surveys. Moving forward, our second prescription. Ask valid and reliable questions to generate valid and reliable answers. So a questionnaire has measurement validity and reliability, when it contains a set of well-calibrated questions and response options that is capable of sufficiently measuring the variables that the survey intends to measure at a certain point in time. So your questionnaire is actually functioning as a ruler, no? And this ruler is supposed to be well calibrated so we can actually measure what we intend to measure. And this ruler is used over and over and over again without deviation from respondent number 1 up to reach your very last respondent. That means that a survey questionnaire should also be pre-tested to confirm its capability of being standardly administered across your adequately sized, randomly selected set of respondents. And since questionnaire also functions as a script, as a communication device, a questionnaire should be checked for its capability to effectively, efficiently articulate the set of instructions, questions, response options to the target respondents. Again, the scientific process produces a survey questionnaire that is not haphazardly designed. And by extension, the scientific process also calls for systematic administration of the survey so that the set of survey questions and response options is not carelessly asked. No? Asking valid and reliable questions, presenting valid and reliable response options, facilitate the generation of valid and reliable answers. Our review of Kalye survey videos bear that the main question is essentially phrased to draw presidential vote choice question using a language that is accessible to the student. So okay yun, thumbs up yun. However, as earlier pointed out, the capricious pattern of asking questions, providing response options, even adding follow-up questions or unscripted follow-up questions and side comments, these run contrary to the systematic prescription of the scientific process, which clearly risks the validity and reliability of survey results. Now, let's go to our, hold on, where am I? Okay. Now, survey literacy training, our prescription and how survey literacy training can help survey creators. So literacy training can actually instruct content creators on how to properly phrase vote choice questions and response options. Content creators can even follow the lead actually of mainstream political groups. Or if you want to be geeky about it, or if you're a student, you may even consult peer-reviewed studies to gather possibilities for question and response option phrasing. It's fine, These options have been tried and tested, and are publicly accessible and may be even used in rolling out surveys. In other words, nag-i-exist na ang templates kung paano tanungin ang vote choice questions. At itong template na to have been tried and tested, have been used over and over again, at meron na siyang, kumbaga, validity and reliability mark of assurance dahil nakapag-deliver na rin siya ng valid and reliable results for other survey groups using these template questions. So pwedeng hiramin ang mga tanong na ito. The careful and the standard administration of questions across the entire pool of respondents must also be emphasized to content creators and members of the field team. The exact phrasing of questions, response options should be read like a script across the respondent pool without deviation. The standardized manner of survey administration helps safeguard the survey from any subjective biases that may emanate from inconsistent modes of questioning and response option administration. Next, our third prescription, draw a representative sample to be able to make inferences about the population. So, a survey sampling design should generate a representative sample. Kung kanina pinag-uusapan natin ang questionnaire, the standardization of questionnaire and the standard administration of the questionnaire. Now, pag-usapan naman natin yung mga taong tatanungin. And we need to be able to generate a representative set of respondents. Now, what do we mean by representative sample? This is essentially an adequately sized, and randomly selected set of respondents from identified segments of the target population. Adequately sized, merong statistics. There's a computation, there's a formula for computing ano yung enough, ano yung adequate for you to be able to represent your target population. Pero size is not enough. No? It's not enough that you ask, gaano ba dapat kalaki ang sample size? You should also be asking the manner of collecting respondents or selecting respondents or drawing respondents from your population pool. Hindi lang, again, ilan, pero paano? Paano ba sila pipiliin? And the prescription is random selection, no? To avoid, again, bias. So paulit-ulit tayo, we want to be objective. We want to be bias-free. So an adequately sized and randomly drawn members from the target population or segments of the target population. And having a representative sample is a requirement, no? Kasi nga, it's unbiased, no? It's a requirement to be able to test whether survey results can actually be used to make inferences about the larger population where the sample came from. And from such testing, also known as inferential testing, decisions can be made whether results computed from the representative sample are within an acceptable confidence level and tolerable margin of error. And thus, pwede ba siyang magamit to describe the characteristics of the target population? So when you're reading valid and reliable results from survey groups that said that they actually conducted survey using a representative sample, ibig sabihin ito adequately sized, randomly drawn, at bukod pa doon, yung adequately sized and randomly drawn sample na nag-contribute ng data, ng survey data, sinubject din yung data na yun to inferential testing. So merong safeguards. So ang scientific process, ang prescription, representative sampling. O may data na tayo sa representative sampling, statistics natin yan, inferential testing natin yan. So that the results that you actually present to your audience are actually subjected, no, to this series of tests. And you're assured, no, at certain confidence level and tolerable margin of error that you're actually delivering, reporting valid and reliable results. But it is evident, no, from the Kalye survey videos, no, that the respondents were selected through convenience sampling technique. No, as enumerators intercept prospective survey. Sa Kalye nga kasi. No? So they intercept, no, as they go about their daily lives. So they intercept on the streets, yung mga naglalakad, in public markets, yung mga namibili around food stalls, in a public transport terminal, yung mga nasa terminal ng tricycle, yan. So this is a non-random manner of selecting respondents, which has repercussions on the results potential for generalizability. So there was even an instance when an enumerator, no, was able to intercept a non-resident of the area, even if the video claimed that the results will be generalized to the population of that particular locale. So we captured the enumerator saying na, kasi sabi ni respondent, hindi po ako taga dito. Kasi sabi niya, okay lang po kahit hindi kayo taga dito, kung meron kayong bet na presidente sa susunod na eleksyon. And yet the video, ang caption niya, ang title niya is, yun nga, generalizing to the population of that particular survey locale. So as such, Kalye surveys should be careful when framing the results of their survey so as not to misinform the viewers that their results speak for a group beyond the sample of respondents. Now, question time. Can surveys with respondents drawn from non-random sampling techniques be considered scientific? Andiyan na rin nasagot. While the gold standard prescribes random sampling, social science research does allow for non-random sampling techniques. However, data from non-random samples must only be used to describe the pool of respondents and not the larger population. And again, emphasis, for surveys, the gold standard is random sampling. So if we want to follow the gold standard of practice, we follow random sampling to be able to generate representative samples. So it's an adequately sized, randomly drawn representative sample. So in fact, we observed naman that there are some Kalye survey videos that did not attempt to generalize. So good yun, no? They did not generalize their findings, which is actually the ideal and recommended track to take, given the members of the members of their sample were selected through non-random techniques, no? So one enumerator even provided a disclaimer that the results of the survey cannot be expected to exactly predict election results. So sabi nga, unfair naman sa mga kandidato kung sasabihin kong sure na yan, si candidate X na yan. So may linyahan din siya nagbinigay na ganon. However, we also noted one occasion when the survey enumerator allowed a respondent to take over survey enumeration. So this respondent took the whiteboard from the enumerator and proceeded to lead the enumerator to a location where she perceived to intercept potential respondents who will favor a potential candidate. So this respondent remarked, kaya kita sinamahan, maraming maka-candidate X dito. Sa labas, puro candidate Y. And the enumerator and the crew followed, no? And just filmed the respondent. So this episode showed the purposive manner of selecting respondents, which introduced sampling bias, contributing even more to the non-representativeness of the sample. And this is also a deviation from the supposed survey protocols, no? That a survey should follow, again, to administer the survey objectively and in a systematic manner. So now the question, can surveys with respondents selected through purposive sampling be considered scientific? It must be noted that purposive sampling is associated with qualitative forms of data gathering, such as ethnographic interviews. Unlike surveys, which fall under the domain of quantitative research that values non-biased random sampling schemes. So magkaiba kasi ang qualitative forms of research and quantitative forms of research, and stricto talaga ang quantitative research pagdating sa sampling at pagpili ng miyembro ng sample. Then again, ang tanong, sabi nga nila, fun lang, katuwaan lang. So can surveys be designed and conducted just for fun? At sabi nga ng enumerator, katuwaan lang po, no? And there are certainly pop surveys that abound. Again, however, when the subject of surveys involves matters of public interest, lalo na kapag eleksyon ang pinag-uusapan, ang boto ang pinag-uusapan, ang vote choice ang pinag-uusapan, at alam naman natin na may mas malaking posibilidad na consequence ito, then its design, administration, analysis, and dissemination must be founded on much care and responsibility. So again, survey literacy na naman po should be there, and should be we should really make an effort, no, to explain to content creators and the members of the survey field team the importance of aligning the reading and interpretation of results with the sample, no, generated from either a random or non-random sampling scheme. Ibagay po natin, iayon po natin yung ating pagbasa ng results sa kung ano lang ang kayang i-deliver ng sample natin. If our sample has been drawn through non-random sampling means, then we cannot generalize to the population because we cannot compute statistically. The statistics that we need to compute for generalization can't be applied when we're using non-random sampling schemes. But if you're able to design a survey and implement it using to your representative sample, then we can use statistics, no, to enable us to make decisions whether we can actually describe population using our data from representative sample. Next, fourth prescription, count incidences to make sense of observation. So gumawa tayo ng instrument, nag-draw tayo ng sample, nag-standard administration tayo. Now, how do we count? No? incidences to make observations. So we count incidences to make observations, to make sense of observations. Our review of Kalye survey videos uncovered different styles of counting frequency of responses. Some feature on-the-spot tallying of responses. Some include reporting of frequency distribution towards the end of the video, while some did not perform any form of aggregation at all. Some videos were edited or spliced, so we are uncertain if the responses have indeed been accounted for in the videos. No? So, given the non-random nature of respondent selection, the data acquired from Kalye surveys cannot again be subjected to statistical techniques that can assess whether the voting patterns observed in the sample can be generalized to the target population. But then, our review of Kalye survey videos revealed the tendency of the title of the videos to frame the surveys as if the survey is representative of the voting population. For example, nagsalita na ang location na ito. These videos also tend to adopt a sensationalized manner of phrasing the video title. For example, landslide sa location. Kalye survey part X. Titindig ang balahibo mo sa survey na ito. Sino ang presidente ng location? Kalye survey part X. Grabe, napuno ang listahan. Sino kaya ang sinisigaw ng taga-location? And we also observed at least one video with a title that claimed something like, may tumabla kay candidate X, even though the results presented in the video did not support this claim. So, okay, another instance that we noted, no, yung opening spiel ng survey enumerator. So the opening spiel hinted at a representative survey. Alamin natin sino ba ang sinisigaw ng mga taga-location para maging presidente sa susunod na halalan. And the video is also accompanied by a description that promotes its supposed representativeness. Ating pakinggan ang tinig ng ating mga kababayan mula sa blank kung sino ang gusto nilang maging susunod na presidente ng Pilipinas. We also noted several occasions when the survey enumerator offered generalizations of the results while the survey was still ongoing. So may mga side comments sila or may mga updates sila that, oh, candidate X, talaga malakas pati sa location na to. Lamang po si candidate X sa location. Taong bayan, nagsalita, si candidate X malakas, hindi po si candidate Y. So ito talaga pinapakita yung horse race, no? Yung horse race accounting of who's leading and who's trailing behind. Thus, again, we emphasize the need for survey literacy training, which can guide content creators on the value of properly reporting response patterns. Otherwise, the reporting only leads to viewer misinformation. In addition, survey literacy training should underscore to content creators that even if results cannot be generalized to the population, kahit na hindi siya generalizable, all responses should be accounted for when reporting results. Even those who are undecided should be accounted for, even those who opted not to participate, the non-response na tinatawag natin. Moreover, emphasis must be placed on explaining to the content creators the analytical impact of the non-random manner by which they typically select their respondents. Again, a non-random sampling scheme can only deliver results that describe that non-random sample and not the larger population. Hence, if the survey can only manage gathering data through non-random sampling, then the framing of the video title and the presentation of results should not mislead the viewers that the results represent the larger population. Yun lang naman yun. Iayon, no, ang pag-frame ng title, ng presentation o anumang parte ng video sa kung ano lang ang dineliver ng ating sample. Okay, now let's move on to ethics, no, the appeal for ethical grounding. So apart from scientific rigor, of course, surveys must persistently follow ethical standards of practice across the entire phase of research. And we will now present incidents where Kalye surveys tend to deviate from the gold standard of ethical practice. And we will offer two additional basic prescriptions that address these deviations. So our fifth prescription, obtain informed consent. Informed consent includes providing the respondents with sufficient information about the survey project, the group conducting the project, its funders, the terms of survey participation, for example, ano yung scope of response task, gaano ba katagal to, statement on beneficence and non-maleficence, in other words, statements about potential benefits and elimination of potential harm, how data collected will be managed, for example, the confidentiality, data privacy, and data storage. It should also contain the project's contact information kung kailangan i-contact ni respondent later on, ang survey group, and an agreement form on informed voluntary participation. And these are all key to enable respondents to make informed decision whether to participate in the survey project or not. We observe from the videos that Kalye survey enumerators tend to have a very casual and straightforward manner of approaching prospective respondents and getting them to participate by simply announcing that they are conducting a Kalye survey and then dropping the question on presidential vote choice. No? We know that Kalye survey is designed to be a fast survey, a quick as and go method of data collection. However, surveys must always uphold the agency of respondents to make an informed decision to participate, even if the survey is designed to be quick. So kahit quick, we still need to get their informed consent. Thus, training content creators on the basic information needed to establish informed consent is necessary. So we likewise observe that most survey enumerators would show a board, no, which functions as a show card, presenting the list of candidates. So asking the question and then may hawak siya board, no, na nakalista doon yung list of candidates. Sometimes the list is even accompanied by photos of the candidate. And at the same time, this board, this show card, also functions as a recording device, as a tally sheet, no, where enumerators actually record the responses as they're given. So designed like so, every succeeding respondent would actually see the latest tally of votes. Thus, we heard respondents giving comments such as, malakas ang candidate X ngayon. Kasi nakita niya yung yung show card, yung board with the list of candidates and with the current running tally. Another respondent said, parang si candidate X ang mahina dyan. And then may isa pang comment, maraming undecided. So in addition, in an effort to claim authenticity, kasi nga parang yun nga, di ba, yun yung packaging ng Kalye surveys, authentic daw sila. So pinapakita nila yung tally board, no, which functions again as a show card at sinasabi ito ang tunay na survey. So the practice of using the board as a show card and as a tally board does not only run contrary to the data privacy clause that is core to survey data collection, it also potentially creates a bandwagon effect when respondents follow the vote of majority or underdog effect when respondents opt to choose the minority on succeeding respondents. So kapag kami nakitang ganito, si respondent 10 for example, at makikita niya na, may mga boto na palang ganito, no? At kung may epekto sa kanya either ang bandwagoning or underdogging, so baka magkaroon ito ng influence sa sasabihin niyang vote choice, no? So this ultimately affects the validity and reliability of survey results, which potentially again generates misleading information. Moreover, the non-private manner of administering the survey can also undermine the independence of the respondents when they express their choice. There are occasions when the survey was administered to a congregation of individuals, and these individuals hear and can comment on the choices of the others. There is also an instance where the enumerator just shouted his question to a crowd, and then they shouted their answers back. So the manner of survey administration can create groupthink effect among the respondents. And some respondents may express a choice that appears to be socially desirable among the other respondents in the group. We also noted occasions when some respondents changed their vote choice after they heard or saw the answer of another respondent. As such, the collected data may reflect voting preference that some respondents did not independently make. And it is concerning to observe how some videos, no, how some Kalye surveys appear to assume that the respondents consented to have their participation recorded on video and worse, be later uploaded in YouTube. So ethical practice emphasizes that survey data collection should be treated as a private and confidential exercise, that the act of video documenting the process and later on uploading it without express permission runs against the ethical principles of informed consent, confidentiality, and data privacy. We observe instances when respondents would visibly hesitate to participate. No? So they would walk away from the camera or they would hide their faces, but the enumerator would still proceed with the survey and in filming them. These respondents would eventually relent, but their hesitation to participate is still visible. And then one instance then, a respondent expressed his agreement to participate. But he requested not to be filmed. So sabi ng enumerator, itatanong na lang, hindi na kita i-video. And then sabi niya sa camera, narinig niyo na lang ha, ayaw magpa-video eh. However, the uploaded video still displayed the respondent's face, even without any effort of blurring it. And we also noted at least 2 occasions when respondents were surprised that they were being filmed. One respondent said, naka-camera pala, baka pagalitan ako ah. While another respondent, upon finding out that the survey will be uploaded on YouTube, commented, baka mamaya ma-shoot to kill ako ah. So overall, no, while it appears to contribute to the Kalye survey's authenticity, the casual and unconsented means of video recording respondents is a violation of informed consent, confidentiality, and data privacy. Survey literacy trainings should again teach content creators to be more mindful and respectful of these non-negotiable principles, regardless of whether they intend their surveys to be entertaining or not. And then finally, last but not the least, our prescription number 6. Honor respondents' voluntary participation and voluntary non-participation. Surveys should honor the articulations in the informed consent form, and surveys should respect the decision of those who opted not to participate and those who decided to terminate their participation during the course of the survey enumeration or during the project duration. It also means honoring the goodwill of survey respondents who volunteered their data. And survey literacy should highlight that surveys as a tool that is highly dependent on informed voluntary participation should always place a premium on the welfare of the respondents across the entire phase of the process. This literacy training should emphasize that the goal is not only to design and implement valid and reliable surveys, but also to make the entire experience a pleasant and safe one for those who agree to participate as respondents, as well as for those who declined at the point of recruitment or those who decided to terminate their involvement during the actual course of the survey. And finally, way forward. To wrap up, we reiterate that surveys, if scientifically and ethically done, can validly and reliably contribute to our sense-making. While Kalye surveys are generally packaged as an alternative to mainstream political polling, they are not excused from the standards expected from social science research methods, given the agenda of their inquiry, given the scope of their dissemination, given their potential to create actual voting effects. And while Kalye surveys may be packaged as for fun, they are prone to cause misinformation if handled carelessly. Any survey, if improperly done, can generate misinformation. You know, our freedom of speech and expression allows any one of us to conduct surveys. Kahit na sino sa atin, pwede mag-survey. No? At ginagarantiya yan ng freedom of speech and expression. Thus, while our review surfaced areas where calye surveys tend to deviate from the gold standard, we also argue that scientific and ethical prescriptions can be learned and incorporated in calye survey practice, in any survey practice. Thus, we advocate for survey literacy, and our 6 basic prescriptions highlighted areas where training can help calye survey content creators in advancing their understanding of the science and ethics of surveys and how this can be applied across the design, administration, analysis, and dissemination phases of the practice. Similarly, our freedom of speech and expression allows every one of us to be informed by surveys. As such, our advocacy on survey literacy also extends to the members of the public who are the ultimate consumers of survey reports. Survey literacy should raise the public's awareness of the science and ethics of surveys to allow them to sensibly interrogate, prudently utilize survey results. Survey literacy should make the tools for evaluating the validity, reliability, ethicality of surveys more accessible and easily understandable to enable us, the public, to protect ourselves from all possible forms of misinformation. And most of all, survey literacy should empower our agency as members of the public so that we can demand accountability among survey groups that deliberately misuse surveys for misinformation. Yun lamang po. Maraming salamat.
Thank you very much for your presentation, Professor Chen. My question now, and I think your co-authors can also join us on screen if they want to answer. I'd like to know, because the presentation that you did focused on people who are to conduct surveys. So what about for people who read surveys? So like a regular consumer such as myself and many people who are watching. Syempre, uso ngayon yan sa social media, and including not just Kalye survey, but also formal surveys that are being released. So what would your tips be for a regular reader of surveys on how to interpret and understand the results that they see, or perhaps what are the things that they can do to ensure na, you know, scientific rigor and ethical practices were done in the conducting of this survey?
Sige. Una muna, before you consume, no? Before you actually read the results, tingnan nyo muna kasi yung method eh. Paano ba actually ginawa yung survey? Paano kinuha yung members of the sample? And it will actually help you decide kung paano mo ipoprocess, no? At paano mo gagamitin yung results ng survey na yon. So look at the sampling design. No? Random ba to or non-random ba to? Adequately sized ba to or hindi, no? And then pag nalaman mo na yon, you can also check, no, kung paano nga ba tinanong yung mga tanong, no? So it's a combination of, again, going back to the prescriptions, no, looking at the sample and how the sample was generated, looking at the question and how the questions were phrased. So when you're actually reading the results, you know na, ito pala yung pagkaka-phrase ng tanong na to na nag-deliver ng ganitong klaseng bar graph, na nag-deliver ng ganitong klaseng statistical table. Ganito pala klase yung sampling na ginawa. Pwede pala niya i-describe ang Metro Manila voting population. Pwede pala niya i-describe ang Filipino registered voters who intend to vote. No? So may mga ganong simpleng metric lang, no, na pwede nating tingnan, no, kung paano natin ma-assess yung valid and credible results ng survey. Of course, no, may mga mainstream political polls din naman kasi na nag-deliver na ganitong klaseng results. At sila kasi, no, may years of experience, may track record na of doing this, and we have established polling groups, no, na nakita natin na kung paano mag-align yung pre-election survey results nila, especially towards May, no? Kapag yung result nila ay malapit na kung kailan gaganapin na eleksyon, and actual results, no? So nakikita natin na ang ganda ng mga batting average nila, no? So kung yung track record ang titingnan, ng mga polling groups. No? We have polling groups that are able to establish a good track record. No? Na ibig sabihin, yung mga pre-election survey results nila, halos ganun din naman, no? Yung lumabas na actual election results. So you can actually also look at the survey groups actually administering surveys. But that is not to say na hindi na natin babasahin, no? Yung mga ibang, kasi may mga smaller groups na nagko-conduct din ng survey, and they actually also followed scientific and ethical principles, and they also deserve, no, na mabasa natin yung mga results nila. So hindi lang heuristic na pagka established groups sila lang yung babasahin natin. So we also give the smaller groups a chance, especially if they actually followed scientific and ethical principles.
Right. We have a question here also from one of the attendees here in our Zoom room. Max asked the question. Max, if you can turn on your microphone so you can ask the question yourself. Max Limpag has a question. Okay. So I'll read na lang the question on his behalf. So Max is asking if the authors can discuss the impact and spread of these Kalye surveys online. Do they have high viewership, and are they more on YouTube or on Facebook? And I guess to extend that question, Ren, what is the impact then if these Kalye surveys are not done with the scientific rigor and the ethical grounding that is necessary? What is the possible impact of that on people who are watching?
Sige, I'll ask Mernel to answer the question on viewership kasi siya yung may handle ng aming viewership statistics. Mernel, go ahead, please.
Yes, regarding dun sa viewership statistics natin, okay, to clarify muna, this is on YouTube. We analyzed Kalye surveys on YouTube. I think the highest viewership that we had is around 450,000 views. So that's almost 500,000, no? And then the average view count is around like 140K views, which is pretty high, diba? So for us, discuss naman ni Ma'am Chen, we actually picked yung top 10 viewed na surveys for this particular research. So, because we wanted to get, kasi ito yung pinaka-pinapanood ng mga tao, no? So, sila yung may pinaka-maximum impact. Merong mga views na hindi kasama namin na tinignan kasi mga ano lang naman sila, 500 views, etc. Pero for the ones that we looked at, maximum 450,000, minimum is actually meron na sa 336 views. Ayan. I'll turn it over to Ma'am Chen to explain kung ano nga ba yung effect nitong Kalye surveys.
Okay, so again, for this round of presentation, we actually did intensity sampling. So we picked, no, the videos with the highest viewership, no, kasi nga sila yung may malaking engagement, no, with the viewers, no, and so from these videos, tinignan namin kung sino yung channel, no, yung content creator nila, at tinignan na rin namin kung ano pa yung ibang content na Kalye surveys, no, na produce itong channels na to. So we actually expanded our review. So beyond the top 10, so ginamit namin siyang unang pag-draw, no? From the top 10, tinignan namin yung channel, and then from the channel, tinignan namin iba pang videos na produce nila. At doon nga namin, no, nakuha yung aming sample for reviewing. Now, ang tanong naman, may impact ba to? Or anong impact na ito? This is actually a question on message effects or media effects, no? As in any political polls, no? I'm moving beyond Kalye surveys, as in any political polls, no? Iba-iba ang sinasabi ng literature about this. Depende kasi ang effect sa voters. If you're asking yung epekto niya sa voters, ibang set of answer yan, ha. Sa voters, it will really depend kasi may mga voters na ang trato sa eleksyon ay, if you're familiar with elaboration likelihood model, may mga ibang voters na talagang central processing, talagang pinag-isipan, dinidiscern, no, ang pagpili ng boto. At kung gagamitin nilang information, no, yung mga results ng political polls, no, papasok sa central processing nila, and most likely gagamitin nila ito along with other factors that they consider when choosing whom to vote for. And these are for voters who actually employ central processing, talagang dinidiscern yung pagboto. But there are also voters who do peripheral processing, heuristics, na bandwagon effect kasi sila, no? Sino na nanalo ito, dito na lang ako. Or underdog effect, dito na lang ako kasi siya yung bukang talo. So depende actually yun kung nasa ang spectrum si voter, no? There are also literature that would say na ang pagpili ng boto ng mga undecideds, possibly doon magpunta yung influence ng political polls, no? Kasi sila pa yung nagde-decide and they actually seek more information. At kung itong information na to ang makita nila, baka ma-consider nila, no? When doing or making their vote choice. So, kung palinghado, kung may problema yung information na kinukuha mo at itong information na gagawin, itong mga information na to ang magiging reference points mo when you're deciding on who to vote for, may problema tayo dyan. And that's why we argue na sana ang survey poll, ang political polls ay gagamit ng metodo na makapagbibigay ng valid and reliable results. Because you'll never know how the results from these political polls will actually be used. No? Now, beyond voters, for example, kung ikaw ay member ng campaign team, political campaign team, iba din kung paano ka maapektuhan ng results ng political polls, di ba? I-recalibrate mo, i-calibrate mo yung campaigns mo, iibahin mo yung strategy mo, i-workout mo yung strategy mo, nakita mo na sa demographic na ito kulang pa, no? Mahina pa. So baka pwede mo i-emphasize yung campaign mo at pumunta sa mga areas na yun. So iba-iba ang posibleng effect. But the bottom line is, whenever you're going to use results, no, from any political polls, you should be using results from scientifically and ethically conducted polls to be able to use valid and reliable information in whatever decision making that you need to make.
All right. Thank you. We have our second question. This one is coming from Ena Tagulam. She's asking about, you mentioned a while ago in your presentation, something about qualitative research. So if you can give an example, what does qualitative research look like in the context of the elections? And in addition to that, she also asks if the emergence of these calye surveys are indicative of polarization in our population, polarization towards perhaps a particular political view.
Actually, when you talk about politics, it's inherently polarizing. No? So talaga ang political discourse, talaga makikita mo ang evidence ng polarization. Kasi it's inherent in politics and political discourse. So now, yung qualitative question. Ang nakikita kasi usually sa calye surveys, ang na-highlight ay yung horse race question. No? Isang tanong na kung sino iboboto mo. No? But actually, ang political polls na ginagawa ng mainstream political polling groups, they ask more than one question. No? They ask questions about issues. Ano bang issues ang kailangang harapin? Ano ba yung issues na sa tingin mo dapat sinasagot na ba ang kandidato? No? So while ang na-highlight kasi usually, yung horse race, yung personalities, no? Kasama din sa mga tinatanong actually ng mga polling ng mga mainstream political groups ang issues, no? Ang mga plataforma, ang mga programa, yung mga wish list ng mga tao. So kasama din yan, no? At ang qualitative forms of data gathering, actually ginagawa to ng mga campaigners, ng mga political campaign teams, no? Ng mga kandidato. They actually do more qualitative forms of studying. So while they depend or they check, no, survey results, no, they also depend on qualitative forms of data gathering para malaman nila ano ba yung gusto ng mga tao at paano maa-address, no, ng kandidato para sa pagde-design niya ng kanyang plataforma, sa pagde-design ng mga programa, no. So paano nga ba maa-address yung wish list na yon ng mga tao? So again, these are just some of the questions that can actually be asked, not only quantitatively, but also qualitatively. So all the follow-up questions actually are best asked through qualitative forms of data gathering. Kasi ang sarap pakipagkwentuhan, di ba? Ang sarap malaman kung ano talaga yung nasa saloobin ng mga tao. And the best form to do that is qualitative. Yun na nga lang, mas matagal. Kasi kwentuhan na nga yung mangyayari doon.
Yeah, so going beyond the personality and actually discussing issues and the realities that affect the respondents. We're down to our last question because we just have limited time. So this one is coming from Gabriel Buluran. He asks, will surveys go the way of traditional news reporting, where people now believe YouTube and TikTok reporting more than formal news companies? And how do you foresee, or how do you protect rather, the polling and research industry from falling victim to this as well? Nakikita nyo, this is happening to mainstream media right now. Rappler is one of them. You know, we're constantly being attacked. People do not believe media anymore and journalists anymore. They believe influencers. So what do you foresee? How do we protect that, this research, that rigor, the scientific rigor is protected?
Actually, I think it's the whole ecosystem of it, no? Hindi lang dahil sa may YouTube nanonood yung mga tao. It's the whole ecosystem of how we actually consume news and where we actually consume news, no? So in another study that we conducted, no, while online media, no, ay isa sa mga sources ng information or ng news and the current affairs information ng members of the public, they actually employ multiple sources of news. So sana matuloy pa rin yung ganong habit na hindi lang tayo sa social media nagde-depend ng news. No? There are actually, again, news organizations, no? Established news organizations that actually deliver news. And these organizations actually have cross-checks. No? May mga code of professional practice silang sinusundan na sa pag-report ng balita at saka mga trained journalists, no? So meron silang code talaga na sinusundan on how to do it, no? Ganon din ang polling groups, no? They have this code of professional and ethical practice na sinusunod na talagang may prescription and may accountability, no, sa mga associations and organizations na members din sila, no? Kaya nagkaroon ng ganitong code of professional practice. So meron silang sinusundan na dapat nilang sundan. Otherwise, magiging accountable sila sa associations or public opinion research organizations or groups na kung saan sila miyembro. Now, paano maproprotektahan? No? Again, hindi kasi natin pwedeng, hindi kasi again part ng freedom of expression, speech and expression na may mga ganito talaga magsusurface. Diba? May mga ganitong magsusurface na balita. No? But how do we counter them? No, paano mo ba mas ma-emphasize na ito yung tamang paraan how to do things, no? Again, survey literacy training. Second, possibly, no, part kasi ang science communication, results of political polls, especially those delivered by established mainstream political groups. Ano yan data science yan statistical science. So part ang science communication. Now, how can they communicate their findings na mas maging attractive siya at i-consume siya ng mga members ng public? Pwede ba din ba silang mag-YouTube, no? And to present it, to package it sa paraan na ma-engage yung mga viewers, no, na panoodin sila na para may alternative, hindi lang puro Kalye surveys yung napapanood. At baka isipin ng mga tao, ito na pala yung standard of doing surveys. They can actually also create similar things. So again, part yun ng science communication. And I think may movement naman towards science communication, and we should not ignore, no, that statistical science should be part of this science communication endeavor.
All right. So maraming salamat. Thank you very much to the authors of our research report that we talked about today. So again, the name of this, The Emergence of Political Polling Through Kalye Surveys. And we had with us today for the Facts First research briefing, Professor Chen San Pascual, Angenica Durana, and Mirnel Cinco. So thank you very much to the three of you for joining us this morning, and to all of you who joined us as well here on Zoom to ask your questions rather. So this is the Facts First PH initiative. This is something that we do as, this is an initiative of the research layer. So Facts First PH always includes the research layer para we understand then the insights and the narratives that are happening, especially during a season like the election season. So a lot of disinformation and misinformation going on. So again, thank you to the authors of this research report that joined us today. And thank you also to all our viewers who joined us this morning to listen and learn more about what's happening in our information ecosystem. So Facts First PH currently has a tip line. So if you see any disinformation being spread online, you can report it via Viber or Messenger. Just check out hashtag FactsFirstPH. And you can also, if you are an interested group and you would like to help participate in defending the facts, you can email us info@factsfirst.ph. Meron na rin tayong billboard ngayon sa EDSA. So if you you can take a look at that also and send us pictures if you see it while driving on EDSA. So thank you again to all of you. This is the Facts First PH research briefing. My name is Happy Fararen, and this is Rappler. Good morning.